We were thinking of going to the Amalfi Coast this summer. My sister Diane's voice was casual, her fingers tapping on my kitchen counter as I poured our coffee. It's always been my dream destination, she sighed, looking out at my garden. But with Michael's pay cut and the kids' college funds, her voice trailed off, eyes sliding back to me. I knew where this was going. I'd built a good life, no children, successful career, careful saving. And not for the first time, my family saw my financial stability as a resource to be tapped. If you helped us out, we'd send you tons of pictures, she added with a smile. What I didn't expect was the text I received 3 weeks later, after I'd transferred the money. Slight change of plans. We're going with Michael's family instead. Space limited. You understand, right? Sometimes generosity isn't rewarded with gratitude, but with the painful clarity of where you truly stand. My home is my sanctuary, a small but elegant 2-bedroom house on a quiet street. I filled it with books, art from my travels, and thriving plants. The kitchen where Diane and I had our conversation is bright, with yellow walls and our grandmother's antique table. It's where I host Sunday dinners every other week, a tradition I started after our parents passed away 5 years ago. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. Diane is 2 years younger, married to Michael with 2 teenagers. Our brother Paul is the baby at 35, still figuring life out. I've always been the steady one, ensuring family traditions continue and everyone stays connected. Teaching literature at the community college doesn't make me rich, but I've always been careful with money. No extravagant purchases, modest car, additional income from writing. While my siblings started families and bought bigger houses with bigger mortgages, I invested and built a financially secure, if somewhat solitary life. It's not that I chose to be alone. Love never quite worked out. Robert in my 20s, brilliant but unwilling to commit. James in my 30s, who wanted me to abandon my career to follow his. At 48, I'd made peace with my life, full of students, good friends, writing, my garden, and my family. My relationship with Diane has always been complicated. As children, we were close despite our differences. She was outgoing and popular, I was quieter and academic. As adults, those differences sometimes created friction. She occasionally made comments about my easy life without children or financial struggles, forgetting the loneliness that sometimes accompanied it. Still, I loved her, and loved being Aunt Eleanor to her children. Our Sunday coffee talks had become a cherished ritual, private time when we could speak more honestly than around others. That particular Sunday, I should have seen the signs. She'd brought my favorite pastries, complimented my haircut, asked detailed questions about my class, all preludes to what she really wanted. This wasn't the first time Diane had asked for financial help. There had been contributions to the kids' school trips, a loan when Michael was between jobs, help with medical bills. I'd never minded. Family helps family. And what was I saving for if not to enjoy life and help those I loved? But something about this request felt different. Perhaps it was the assumption rather than asking. Perhaps it was how casually she suggested I'd vicariously enjoy their vacation through pictures, as if that were equal exchange for thousands of dollars. Or perhaps it was simply that the Amalfi Coast had been on my own dream list for years, something Diane knew well. "How much would you need?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "We've calculated everything." She showed me a detailed note on her phone. About $7,000 would make it possible. The amount gave me pause. "That's quite a bit, Diane." "I know it's a lot," she admitted, looking uncomfortable. "But the kids are getting older. Soon they'll be in college. These family experiences mean everything. You always say family is the most important thing." She had me there. I did say that. "Let me think about it," I said. "I'd need to move some investments around." She looked disappointed but nodded. "Of course." Then, almost as an afterthought, "You could come too if you wanted." The invitation felt hollow, tacked on rather than genuine. Still, I considered it. The Amalfi Coast in summer, time with my niece and nephew, perhaps a chance to strengthen my bond with Diane. "I might like that," I said. "Let me check my schedule." That week, I researched the coast, looked at finances, considered my plans. I had a writing workshop in July, but it could be rescheduled. My investments could be withdrawn without significant penalty. And the idea of experiencing that coastline with family rather than alone held genuine appeal. I called Diane Thursday. "I can help with the trip, and I'd like to come along." "Really? That's amazing, Ellie." Her excitement seemed genuine. "Let me talk to Michael about dates." The next few weeks involved family discussions about the trip, where to stay, which tours to book, whether to add days in Rome. I transferred $7,500, slightly more than requested. I bought a new swimsuit, a wide-brimmed hat, brushed up on minimal Italian. Then came the text that changed everything. "Slight change of plans. We're going with Michael's family instead. Space limited. You understand, right? Still so grateful for your help making this happen. We'll send tons of pics." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times. The trip I'd helped fund, rearranged my summer for, been invited on. I was now uninvited. Not even with a phone call, but a text cushioned with emojis. I didn't respond immediately. Demand my money back? Insist they include me? Neither felt right, yet simply accepting this treatment felt worse. When I finally called Diane the next day, her explanations tumbled out. Michael's parents had expressed interest. The villa could only accommodate 8 people. The kids wanted time with cousins. Wouldn't it be awkward for me as the only single person among 3 couples? "We just thought it made more sense this way," she concluded. "We're still so grateful. We couldn't do this without you." What she meant was, they couldn't do this without my money. My presence was optional. That night, I sat in my garden as twilight deepened to darkness. String lights glowed softly, illuminating roses I'd nurtured for years. I thought about family, what we owe each other, what we give freely, what we tolerate. I thought about patterns formed so subtly you barely notice until they're firmly established. The pattern with Diane had been building for years, small requests growing larger, my role defined by what I provided rather than who I was. The assumption that my resources were family resources, while my desires were secondary. I'd enabled this pattern. My eagerness to help, stay connected, be needed, it had shifted our relationship's balance. In trying to remain close, I'd allowed myself to become family benefactor rather than family member. The next morning, I made a decision. I wrote Diane an email, calmer than a phone call would be. "I've thought about the changed vacation plans," I wrote. "While I understand family dynamics are complicated, I'm hurt by how this was handled. The money was given with the understanding that I was included. Being uninvited via text after I'd made summer arrangements feels disrespectful." I continued, "I don't want my money back. Consider it a gift, given with love despite circumstances. But this situation has made me reconsider our relationship. I need time to think about healthier boundaries going forward." I ended with, "I hope your family has a wonderful experience. I'm canceling Sunday's dinner. I think we need a few weeks apart. Love, Ellie." Pressing send was terrifying and liberating. For perhaps the first time, I had expressed hurt without minimizing it, set a boundary without apologizing. Diane's response came quickly, surprised, defensive, eventually contrite. She hadn't thought of it that way. She'd assumed I wouldn't mind. She was sorry if I felt excluded. If I felt excluded. Not that I had been excluded. I didn't respond. The following weeks were quieter than usual. No Sunday dinners, minimal contact with Diane. I focused on myself, the writing workshop, a literary festival, dinners with friends who'd sometimes taken back seat to family obligations. Paul called, confused by the change in family dynamics. "What's going on with you and Diane?" he asked. "She said you're upset about the vacation." I explained neutrally. Paul was quiet for a moment. "That was pretty crappy of her," he said finally. "But she doesn't always think about how things affect others." "That's the problem," I replied. "I've made it too easy for her not to think about how things affect me." July came, bringing photos from the Amalfi Coast, blue water, colorful buildings on cliffs, my niece and nephew at historic sites, family dinners overlooking the Mediterranean. I responded politely, but briefly. In August, Diane came to talk, sitting in my garden as cicadas hummed. "I've missed our Sundays," she said, accepting wine I offered. "I have too," I admitted, "but I needed the break." "I'm sorry about how everything happened," she said. "I can see how it appeared." "How it appeared?" I repeated. "It's not about appearances. It's about my place in this family. Would you have asked Paul to fund a vacation and then uninvited him?" She flushed. "That's different. Paul can barely support himself." "So, because I've been responsible with money, because I don't have children, my feelings matter less?" "Of course not. You've always been so generous. I just thought that I'd keep giving without needing anything in return." She looked down. "When you put it like that, it sounds terrible." "It feels terrible too," I said quietly. We talked for hours, uncovering years of assumptions, how my financial stability had become a family resource, how my time was considered more flexible because I didn't have children, how giving had become my primary way of staying connected to a family that often made me feel like an outsider. The shift in our relationship didn't happen overnight. Old patterns resist change. But slowly, things evolved. I still host Sunday dinners, but not every week, and others take turns. I'm still generous with the children, but with my time and presence, not just my checkbook. When I do provide financial help, it comes with clear expectations. As for the Amalfi Coast, I finally went this past spring, a solo trip planned around my interests. I stayed overlooking the water, took a cooking class, visited art galleries, read on sun-drenched terraces. The experience was gloriously my own. The most surprising outcome has been with Diane. After initial discomfort, our relationship deepened. We're more honest now, more direct about expectations. She sees me more clearly, not just as her generous sister, but as a woman with her own life. And I see her not as someone trying to take advantage, but as someone who hadn't considered certain perspectives. Last month, she suggested a sisters-only weekend. "My treat," she insisted. "No strings." A small gesture, but meaningful. Acknowledgement that relationships need balance, that giving should flow both ways. The truth I've learned is that real family doesn't just take what you offer. They see you, value you, make space for all of who you are. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is stand firm in your worth, even when uncomfortable. Because proper love doesn't diminish who you are. It shouldn't cost your dignity or self-respect. And sometimes, the vacation you need most isn't to a beautiful coastline, but to a place where you finally recognize your own value.